In the vast desert state of Arizona, a bitter battle is reaching boiling point.
If you want to stop the destruction of our country and save the American dream, then you have to vote Republican up and down the line.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to do.
At this year's midterm elections, democracy is on the ballot. So you still believe that Donald Trump won the state of Arizona?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Without a free and fair and open election, you don't have democracy. The thing they can't crush is the desire to be free and to be in control of your own life.
Do you all think that the election was stolen in 2020?
100% the election was stolen.
We're going to have to win by a mile to eke out.
Voters here are electing 3 of the state's most important positions: Secretary of State, Governor, and one of 2 senators to the US Congress.
The people are angry. They believe that justice has been denied with the 2020 election.
We had great times under President Trump, and we miss you so much, President Trump.
The 3 Republican candidates running are Trump-endorsed and peddling his big lie the 2020 election was stolen.
The folks who believe what they're saying are being misled.
People who wish to believe that the 2020 election was somehow illegitimate continue to believe that despite all the evidence to the contrary.
God bless the USA.
Arizona has one of the largest contingent of Republicans who say they'd prefer candidates who subscribe to Trump's election conspiracies. So we're driving through Arizona, one of the most contested states in America, where a presidential election can be lost or won. Biden took the state in 2020. It's something Donald Trump still denies ever happened. Now he's trying to help his supporters, the MAGA candidates, regain some ground here. Our first stop is Catalina, 2 hours drive southeast of the capital, Phoenix. We're catching up with die-hard Trump supporters Jorge and Betty Rivers. Jorge.
Hello.
Hello, nice
Jorge,
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello,
Hi.
Betty. Nice to meet
Come
you.
on
Thank
in.
you for having us today.
Two other clients that we met, President Trump.
The migrant couple have run this Mexican restaurant for almost 30 years.
I made a sign that says Latino support Donald Trump because at that time the media was already saying that Latinos did not like Donald Trump. The Latino was a hateful person, did not like Latinos, but we felt different. We thought that wasn't true. We support him because we share similar values. I know he believes in family. He believes in, teaching your kids, your sons and daughters, good moral values. Teaching them, God values, Christian values, and to work hard to love this country for everything that offers to anyone who comes to this country. And that we made a connection with him. There was a lot of fraud out there that led to have more ballots for Biden than for Trump. So we do realize that Biden won, but he won including ballots that were fraudulent, ballots that were created in one way or the other to make his numbers higher than Trump.
Where was the fraud?
Where?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
The couple also think Congress's January 6th investigation is a witch hunt.
They're making a show for the potential voters in 2022 and 2024. It's all a show. That's what they're doing.
And you have to move some things around in the back.
We head back to Phoenix to meet one of the Trump-endorsed candidates.
Where are we off to?
We're off to Lake Havasu City, which is in the northwestern part of Arizona. We're going to the London Bridge Republican Women's Dinner tonight.
Mark Fincham was a state politician for 8 years. He's now running for Secretary of State, the Arizona official who oversees and certifies elections in federal, state and local races.
And you've got, frankly, an illegitimate government in place. Just a sanity check. How are you? How are you doing? Good to see you.
He's on the far right of the Republican Party and has campaigned relentlessly to overturn the 2020 election, even joining the protests in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. In August, Fincham handsomely won his party's nomination.
When I become Secretary of State, I'm not under any delusion that we're going to solve for all of the cheating. Every time you shut one fraud vector down, they're going to be looking for another one to replace it. So it's big business to cheat. Elections belong to the people, they don't belong to the government. Would you agree with that? Yes. Okay.
Since the November 2020 election, there's been a recount, audits and a review by the Republican Attorney General. All found no fraud. There were several audits into the election result in Arizona, and they all came back finding no fraud.
That's not true.
How do you...
That's not true. To be a qualified audit, you have to have a disinterested third party.
The Attorney General of Arizona, though, declared that there was no fraud.
How can he do that when he hasn't even seen the evidence? He made that statement before he received any evidence. That's why I think he's a fraud.
My personal moral code is that you shouldn't say things that are wrong, even if it means that, you know, it's electorally disadvantageous. And, you know, as for how it actually plays out,
it was in the outer suburbs of Phoenix in Maricopa County where Arizona's 2020 election controversy erupted.
So this is the elections facility. So for Maricopa County has 4.5 million people and about 2.5 million registered voters. We make up about 61% of the voting population of Arizona. Directly into the tabulation machine. So
Stephen Richer is in charge of the county's electoral process. Whoever wins Maricopa wins the state.
We take security very seriously here, both to ensure the safety of our people, but also to ensure, of course, the safety and integrity of your ballot.
When Arizona was declared for Biden on election night, Donald Trump whipped up his supporters to challenge the result. Stephen Richer had to respond to the many allegations of fraud. He and his wife also faced a sustained barrage of threats.
So these are some of the printers. They really ran the whole gamut from inserting fake ballots from China to Italian spy satellites manipulating the vote to chickens eating ballots that were discarded from the elections office to the more mundane of Sharpies bleeding through and affecting the vote to dead people casting ballots to people moving out of the county and still casting a ballot.
A large portion of members of government in Arizona, though, I think some polling showed like plus 80%, wanted to overturn the election result or didn't believe that it was accurate. What do you think that says about the Republican Party in Arizona?
We've got work to do. We've still got work to do. Now, unfortunately, some of those people say one thing in public and say one thing in private, and those are not the same thing. And there's a market right now for people who continue to perpetuate falsehoods.
We don't have the luxury, nor would we want to have dead people voting on our side. But as long as they've got dead people voting on their side, that means we got to go out and vote like our lives depend on it.
That market has been exploited by former Conservative television host Carrie Lake.
You can't buy this election. You can't buy it this time. Arizona's not willing to let this election be stolen or bought. We're going to go out and vote, and we're going to save Arizona.
The Trump endorsee won the Republican nomination for governor.
Unfortunately, we have a stolen election, and we actually have an illegitimate president sitting in the White House. And we're going to make sure that in Arizona, our elections are fair.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for doing this.
Carrie Lake is speaking to the majority of Republican primary voters. It is not the majority of voters in Arizona. And what I know from voters I'm talking to, they are tired of relitigating the 2020 election. They want to move on.
The state's current Secretary of State, Democrat Katie Hobbs, is challenging Carrie Lake for governor.
They're more focused on appeasing the former president and his big lie. They're coming back better prepared to challenge election results if they don't like them, and laying the groundwork for 2024 and to be able to overturn the election if they don't like the results. We have checks and balances, and so one person can't unilaterally do something to overturn the election, but if multiple people are elected in the legislature to change the laws, the governor and the Secretary of State acting in concert to not certify the election, then we're in trouble.
How much of a threat do you think Mark Finchem and Carrie Lake being in power would be to the electoral process?
Oh, it would absolutely be dangerous. They've both continued to call for decertification of the 2020 election, which we all know there's no basis for that.
Since certifying the 2020 election, she and her family have received death threats. For her safety, we're conducting this interview in an undisclosed location.
I had armed protesters outside of my house. It was not something that was on my bingo card of what would happen in the Secretary of State's office. The level of vitriol and just harassment in politics is something unique today that we haven't seen before.
Arizona is one of the most closely watched races of this year's midterm elections. Recent polls show the state's voters are narrowly divided over whether to elect Trump-backed candidates, still peddling his lies of a stolen election. But even if the former president's endorsees lose, there's no guarantee they'll accept the result.